Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So obviously this past weekend, Alexander Usyk retained his heavyweight titles by defeating Anthony Joshua by a split decision. Now in my mind, it should have been a UD, but regardless, Usyk got the decision that he deserved. And when it comes to Usyk, I don't really think there's much point me discussing what I want to see from him next. It's obvious, right? The main fight in the heavyweight division, undisputed, Alexander Usyk versus Tyson Fury for all of the marbles to crown the man in the division. That is what we want to see next from Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. So fingers crossed that fight can happen. I've got no doubts on Usyk's side, to be honest. He's always wanted to fight the best competition. He's always been out here striving for greatness. Basically every single significant fight he's had has been on the road. We can trust Usyk. He's got a track record. Hopefully Tyson Fury follows suit and makes that fight happen. But the future of Anthony Joshua is very interesting post-fight, post-Alexander Usyk too. Now, when it comes to Anthony Joshua, I always find it kind of a chore to talk about him, just because he's got so many insufferable fanboys who love whatever he does, and any criticism is viewed as hate. But on the flip side, I would say he does have some unreasonable, I guess, I hate to use the word, but haters, who regardless, you know, if you talk about Anthony Joshua, oh, he's shit, he's no good, he's a bum, he's stiff, he's this, he's that. No, listen, Joshua's a very good fighter, very good heavyweight, but he just wasn't the guy in which Sky Sports, mainstream media, his fanboys painted out to be. But that doesn't mean he's not a very good fighter, because he is. But following his defeat to Alexander Usyk, where does Anthony Joshua go from here? In regards to his performance against Alexander Usyk, I felt there was a noticeable improvement from the first fight. I felt he had much more success in the second fight with Alexander Usyk. I felt at times he displayed some good body work. Early on in the fight, I felt his foot positioning against the southpaw was much better than it was in the first fight. Again, early on in the second fight, I felt Joshua's defense was much better. Not by doing anything crazy, but his guard was a lot tighter, and he was actually blocking a fair few of Usyk's shots early on. And yeah, overall, I just felt I felt he made Usyk feel more uncomfortable in this rematch, but still, it wasn't enough. I still felt Usyk won quite clearly, but I felt there were signs of improvement from Anthony Joshua, and he needs to build on that going forwards. Losing this fight, of course, there's not going to be another immediate title rematch, you know. He needs to build himself back up. Now, one thing I will say, if I'm Anthony Joshua, or if I'm advising him, I would advise him to stick with Robert Garcia and essentially keep him as his main trainer. Angel Fernandez, listen, if you want to keep him in camp, fair enough, but I think Anthony Joshua needs to stick with one main trainer, and based on what he's working with right now, I would say that should be Robert Garcia. Give Robert Garcia some time with Anthony Joshua to be the main man, and go from there. And in fact, I would say that Robert Garcia shouldn't come to Anthony Joshua. Joshua should go to Oxnard, California, and base his training camps out there, because ultimately in doing that, he will be further away from the British media. America has quality sparring partners. You know, I think Joshua at this point in time probably needs to get out of his comfort zone and change his surroundings, and I would suggest having your training camps in Oxnard, California, with Robert Garcia as your main trainer. So yeah, I would like to see Joshua commit to Robert Garcia, try to build on what he did well in that second Usyk fight, because again, he was better in certain aspects. I liked some of the bodywork. I liked his foot positioning early in the fight. I felt he was more imposing on Usyk in this second fight. And also, again, even defensively early on, he was much better. And he needs to build on that going forwards. And yeah, training with Robert Garcia full-time in America could be interesting for Joshua's career. And I would also suggest, now that Joshua is coming off 2 back-to-back losses where he was outboxed, and listen, he's actually 3 losses in his last 5 fights. For his next fight or 2, I would advise Anthony Joshua to really take a step back. That might be hard because Joshua has signed this deal with DAZN, which is worth a lot of money. So maybe DAZN won't be willing to allow Joshua to take those sort of fights. But I think Joshua needs to take a step back, a step down in levels, and a step down in attention, and take a couple of fights against guys who are not necessarily the cream of the crop, but not complete pushovers. Maybe, he's talking about coming back in December. Fight at the O2 Arena on regular DAZN. Don't do it as a pay-per-view, just do it as a regular DAZN card. That would be good for DAZN because, listen, Joshua's still a draw and he will attract subscribers, but have your comeback fight in December at the O2 Arena, not on pay-per-view, not for big lights, not this, that and the other. Have your comeback fight against the likes of Otto Wallin and Agit Kabayel, guys who are respectable, but not necessarily top 10 level within the heavyweight division. Guys who could stick around for a few rounds, but ultimately guys who Anthony Joshua should beat. Maybe Zhilei Zhang could be another example of that sort of guy. Zhilei Zhang is coming off a loss to Hrgovic, but most people felt he won. That could be a good fight, or a good comeback fight for Anthony Joshua. These are the sort of fights, or this is the sort of level in which I would be having Joshua fight at for his comeback. And listen, Joshua should beat those guys I mentioned. Have a comeback fight, a confidence builder, a confidence booster, and essentially go from there. Maybe have a quick fire return right after that, so maybe fight in December and then come back in March. Fight at the O2 again and fight a similar level of opponent. Maybe he fights Otto Wallin in December and then in March he fights Agit Kabayel. I think, a couple of quick fire fights with activity against some lower level competition, not complete bums, but lower level competition could do Anthony Joshua the world of good, especially considering that he may stick with Robert Garcia, and I think he needs time to really bed in that relationship. I think Robert Garcia maybe potentially could be good for Anthony Joshua. I felt there was improvements in that second fight. So why not stick with it? Why not give it a go? Have a couple of quick-fire comeback fights against mid-tier European level competition and then go from there. Let's say he beats Kabayel and Otto Wallin back-to-back. Maybe in the summer of next year, he could be looking at a trilogy fight with the likes of Andy Ruiz. And if he were to go through a run like that, Joshua would be near the top of the pile. I mean, he's still a big draw. People are still going to want to fight him. He can take a couple of fights where he's learning new things, where he's bedding in with a new trainer, and regardless, he can have a couple of those sort of smaller fights and he will still be relevant. Let's say he wins those comeback fights, couple of comeback fights in quick succession, then maybe in the summer of 2023 he can then jump back in at the elite level in massive fights. Maybe a Deontay Wilder. That would still be a huge fight, and it's winnable. I mean, I would give Deontay Wilder a massive chance in that fight, but Anthony Joshua on his day could beat a Deontay Wilder. Of course he could. So to me, the comeback route for Anthony Joshua is simple. If he wants to stick around, there are options out there for him. I mean, who knows? Maybe again, he has those couple of comeback fights, quick-fire comeback fights, and by summer of next year, maybe Fury's beaten Usyk, and that fight is still there. Again, would I pick him to beat Tyson Fury? No, I wouldn't. But what my point is, there's still big money on the table for Anthony Joshua, and it really won't take much for him to get back at that level, And I said the same for Deontay Wilder after the third Fury loss. he would be foolish to retire now. There's still a lot of money on the table. There are still big fights on the table. Is Anthony Joshua as good as his fanboys made out? No, absolutely not. But he's still a very good heavyweight. He can still be involved in some really good fights. And who knows, maybe he can even pick up some more big wins in the future. Maybe Joshua has these comeback fights. Usyk or Fury beat each other regardless of how that goes. The winner vacates the titles. Maybe Joshua can pick up another vacant title and become a champion again. There are still things to achieve for Anthony Joshua. There's still a lot of money to be made. And ultimately, there are fights out there in which I want to see him in. There are still some very interesting fights, potential fights involving Anthony Joshua. I wouldn't sit here and say he needs to retire. He's not a factor anymore. That's nonsense. He's still a very good fighter. He has his flaws, both physically and technically, but he can still make for some really, really good fights. But ultimately, that is down to him. I think he needs to humble himself, quite frankly. I think if I was him, or if I was advising him, again, I would advise him to maybe take up this role with Robert Garcia full time. Change your surroundings, accept what has happened, take an attitude adjustment, and go again, start again. Why not? I mean, he's made tens of millions of pounds, and yeah, I mean, he's not a champion anymore. Why, he can take a bit of time here on this comeback. So yeah, I mean, this really doesn't have to be the end of the road for Anthony Joshua. Do I think Anthony Joshua will ever have the argument of being the #1 heavyweight in the world again? No, I don't. Not really, but that doesn't mean he should retire, in my opinion. Just how I see it. And who knows, maybe he might surprise us all and have a great comeback and achieve some great things. Who knows? Listen, the guy's a big lump. He's powerful. He does have some skill. Go again. I don't want to see fucking what I saw in that post-fight interview. I don't want to see that, feeling sorry for yourself and crying in the post-fight interview. Don't want to see it. Not interested. You're a big lump. He can hit hard. He has some skills. Just go again. But change some things up and reflect on what went wrong and come back stronger. That's how I see it. But yeah, I still think there's some great fights out there for him. I really do. And some in which he could win. Who knows? Maybe a trilogy fight with Andy Ruiz. There's fights out there for him, is my point. But yeah, share your thoughts below. What do you make of Anthony Joshua's future? Where does he go from here? Share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Del Boy. Peace.